The huge white cruise ship waited near the shining sea while people arrived with happy faces and heavy bags as soft music played across the wide deck and warm air moved gently around everyone, and among the travelers was a man named Ron who wore a fine jacket and dark glasses, and beside him was a young woman named Mia who stayed close to him and smiled as if this journey was something special for her, and Ron felt proud and relaxed because he believed no one from his past could ever reach him on this floating world. Ron had told everyone that his wife Lena was busy far away and that she was living a simple quiet life, and he believed that she would never know about this trip, and as he walked with Mia across the clean floors and bright halls he felt free from all the promises he had once made, and the weight of his old life seemed far behind him as the ship slowly prepared to sail. Mia talked about the luxury rooms and the large windows and the fine food that waited for them, and Ron nodded with a soft laugh while his mind was full of dreams of an easy future, and deep inside he felt proud that he had chosen a new life instead of the slow one he had shared with Lena, who he believed had never changed. While the guests enjoyed the beauty of the ship, another person walked onto the deck with calm, steady steps, and her name was Lena, and she wore a clean uniform that fit her well, and her eyes were strong and quiet as she moved through the long halls, and people around her greeted her with respect because she did not walk like a visitor, she walked like someone who belonged there. Lena had spent many years working hard and growing stronger and wiser, and she had built a life of discipline and skill, while Ron believed she was still trapped in a small world, and now she was ready to guide this great ship across the wide sea with confidence and control, and even though her heart remembered the past, her face showed only calm. Crew members nodded as Lena passed them, and some quietly stepped aside because they knew her role was important, and she reached a private room near the front of the ship where she looked at a map of the ocean and checked every detail with care because this journey mattered to her in ways no one else could see. Back on the open deck, Ron leaned against a bright rail as Mia stood beside him, and the sea stretched far into the distance, and Ron told her how he had always wanted a life of travel and freedom, and Mia listened closely, believing that this man was brave and ready for a new chapter, and she had no idea that his past was walking on the same ship. A soft bell rang through the air, and guests slowly gathered near a wide stage as they waited to hear the opening words of the journey, and Ron barely paid attention at first because his mind was full of comfort and ease, and Mia held his arm smiling as people around them took their places. Then a smooth, clear voice filled the space and welcomed everyone aboard and spoke about the beauty of the sea and the promise of the days ahead, and when Ron heard that voice, something inside him suddenly felt strange because it sounded steady and calm and too familiar, and he slowly lifted his head as his heart began to beat faster. The voice continued and spoke about safety and leadership and the care that would guide this ship across the ocean, and Ron felt his chest grow tight as if the air had become heavy, and Mia noticed that his smile was gone and his hand was now stiff against the rail. Then the voice proudly announced the name of the ship's captain, and when that name was spoken the world seemed to stop around Ron because the name was Lena, and his breath caught in his throat as shock spread through his body and his eyes grew wide as he struggled to understand how this could be real. Mia turned to him with a confused look because she had never seen him like this, and Ron could not speak or move because the woman he had left behind, the woman he believed was small and forgotten, was now the leader of this powerful ship. Far across the hall Lena stood tall and calm, and her face showed no fear and no doubt as she prepared to step forward into her role, and she did not look for Ron, but she already knew he was there, and in that quiet moment the past and the present met on the wide open sea. The ship slowly began to move away from the dock, and waves rolled gently along its side as the journey started, and Ron realized that this was no longer a simple trip but something much deeper and much harder to escape, and Mia felt that something had changed, though she could not yet understand what it was. And Lena moved forward ready to take command of the great ship, while Ron stood frozen with the truth now closing in around him as the ocean carried them all toward a future none of them had planned. The ship moved slowly away from the bright port, and the sound of the sea grew louder as waves touched the side, and guests watched the land fade into the distance while Ron still stood in shock beside Mia, and his heart felt heavy because he knew this journey had just turned into something he never expected, and the calm world he had built inside his mind was now breaking. Mia looked at Ron and saw his face pale and his eyes filled with fear, and she asked him again what was wrong, but he only shook his head because words were hard to find, and he felt like the truth was pressing against his chest and making it hard to breathe, and he wished for one moment that he could turn back time. Across the ship Lena walked through the long halls toward the control room, and crew members followed her with respect and quiet voices, and she checked every screen and every map with care because the safety of everyone on board was now in her hands, and though her face stayed calm her heart knew that Ron was somewhere close and that this meeting could not be avoided. Ron tried to stay hidden among the crowd as people moved around with drinks and laughter, but everywhere he went he felt like the walls were slowly closing in on him, and Mia stayed close asking gentle questions, but he could only give short answers because the past was rising like a strong wave inside his mind. He remembered the days when Lena and he had shared small dreams and long talks, and he remembered how she had spoken about wanting to lead and explore and grow while he had once smiled and told her those dreams were too big, and now those same dreams had lifted her higher than he ever imagined. Mia finally stopped him near a quiet corner and asked him again about Lena, and this time he could not avoid the truth, and he softly said that Lena was his wife and that he had left her behind to find something new, and Mia felt a deep shock as she looked at him because she had believed she was stepping into a clean future, not a broken one. The ship was full of bright lights and soft music, but between Ron and Mia there was now a heavy silence, and Ron knew that his choices were now clear for everyone to see, and the easy joy of the trip was slowly turning into something uncertain. Lena stood at the front of the ship and watched the wide sea through a large window, and her thoughts moved quietly through memories of Ron and the life they once shared, and though she felt no anger, she felt a deep strength because she had grown beyond that past and she was ready to face it with calm. Later that evening a small gathering was held for the crew and important guests, and Ron and Mia were invited, and Ron felt his heart race because he knew that Lena would be there, and when they entered the bright room Lena stood near the center speaking with confidence, and everyone listened to her with respect. When her eyes met Ron again, she did not show surprise or pain, she simply gave a small nod as if greeting someone from long ago, and Ron felt both shame and wonder because the woman he had once known was now someone new and powerful. Mia stood quietly beside him, and now she could see the truth in the way Lena held herself, and she realized that this story was far deeper than she had thought, and the world she had entered was not simple at all. As the night continued, Lena spoke about the journey and the plans for the days ahead, and her voice filled the room with calm and control, and Ron listened with a heavy heart because every word reminded him of what he had lost and what he had chosen to walk away from. The ship moved forward through the dark water and under the wide sky, and all three of them knew that this journey was no longer just about travel but about facing the past and the truth that waited between them as the sea carried them toward whatever was coming next. The next morning the ship was surrounded by endless blue water, and the sun rose softly over the calm sea as guests walked across the wide deck enjoying the warm air and gentle breeze, while Ron stood alone near the rail thinking about everything that had happened, and his heart felt heavy because this trip was no longer a place of joy but a place where truth could no longer hide. Mia stayed in their room for some time trying to understand her own feelings, and she knew that Ron had not told her everything, and now that she knew about Lena she felt unsure about the future, and the easy smiles from before were gone, and she wondered if this journey had been built on something that was never real. Lena started her day early as she checked the route and the weather and spoke calmly with the crew, and everyone followed her lead with respect and trust, and though she did not speak about Ron she was aware that their paths would cross again, and she was ready to face him without fear. Later that day Ron finally gathered the courage to walk through the halls and toward the upper deck where Lena often stood, and his steps were slow and careful, and every memory of their past came back to him as he moved closer, and when he saw her standing there looking out at the sea he felt both small and nervous. Lena turned and saw him, and there was no surprise in her eyes, only quiet awareness, and Ron stopped a short distance away, and for a moment neither of them spoke, and the sound of the waves filled the space between them. Ron finally said her name in a low voice, and Lena listened without moving, and he tried to speak about the past and how things had changed, but the words felt weak and broken, and Lena only nodded slowly as she heard him. She spoke in a calm, gentle voice and told him that she had grown stronger and had built a life of her own, and that the days when she waited for him were long gone, and Ron felt a deep weight in his chest because he could see that she was no longer the woman he had left behind. Mia watched from a distance and saw the quiet strength in Lena, and she understood that this woman was not angry or bitter but steady and powerful, and she realized that Ron was standing before someone who had moved far beyond him. As the day went on the ship sailed smoothly through the wide sea, and guests enjoyed their time while beneath the surface emotions were rising, and Ron felt torn between the life he had chosen and the past he had tried to forget, and Mia felt unsure about her place in this story. That evening Lena hosted a small meeting with the crew and some guests to talk about the next part of the journey, and her calm voice filled the room, and Ron and Mia sat quietly listening, and Ron could not help but feel proud and sad at the same time because Lena had become someone great while he had only run away. After the meeting Mia gently spoke to Ron and told him that she needed time to think, and she walked away leaving him alone with his thoughts, and Ron realized that the truth had changed everything and the future he had imagined was no longer clear. The ship continued forward under the dark sky, and Lena stood once again at the front looking out at the endless water, and she felt peaceful because she knew who she was and where she was going, and whatever happened next she would face it with strength as the journey moved toward its final turn. The final days of the cruise arrived with soft skies and calm waters, and the ship moved gently across the wide sea as if it knew this journey was reaching its end. And Ron walked slowly across the deck each morning, thinking about how much had changed since the first day, and the excitement he once felt was now replaced by deep thoughts about his past and the choices he had made. Mia spent much of her time alone watching the waves and thinking about what she had learned, and she understood that her place in this story was never meant to be built on secrets and false promises. And while she did not hate Ron, she knew that she needed honesty to feel safe and valued, and this trip had shown her that truth matters more than comfort. Lena continued to lead the ship with calm strength, and every member of the crew trusted her, and every guest felt safe under her care. And though she carried memories of Ron, she did not let them control her, and she had built a future that stood strong on its own, and nothing from the past could take that away. One afternoon, Ron and Lena met again near the quiet side of the deck where the sea stretched wide and open, and Ron spoke softly about how he now saw her for who she truly was, and how he realized that he had lost something rare and important. And Lena listened without anger because she no longer needed to hold pain in her heart. She told him in a gentle voice that everyone makes choices, and those choices shape the future, and she had chosen to grow while he had chosen to run, and now they were standing in two different places in life, and though their past would always exist, it no longer ruled her. Ron felt both sadness and respect as he looked at Lena, and he finally understood that she did not need him to be strong, and that realization was heavier than any storm. And he thanked her for her honesty and stepped back, knowing that some doors once closed never open again. Mia later joined Lena for a short talk, and she told her that she admired her courage, and Lena smiled and wished her well, and Mia felt lighter because she knew that she was now free to choose a better path built on truth and respect. As the ship moved toward its final port, the sun set in warm colors across the sky, and all three of them stood in different places on the deck thinking about the journey they had shared and how it had changed them. And though their lives would move in different directions, they would always remember this turning point on the sea. When the ship finally reached the port, Lena stood tall and proud as she guided it safely home, and Ron and Mia prepared to step off with new understanding, and the wide sea behind them held all the memories of what had been faced and learned. And so the journey ended not with anger or regret, but with quiet growth and clear truth, as each of them walked toward a future shaped by the choices they now understood better than ever.